Okay, so I made a video earlier. I didn't really do like an outline or anything. I just hit record and I just kind of like went off the top of my head. I mean, I did have some tabs already pre-selected, but I didn't really know where I was going to start and where I was going to go. So there was a lot to cover in regards to Hex. But the most important part um, of the whole Hex ecosystem. So I rewatched the video and I saw some mistakes that I made, some things that I left out. Um, I misspoke on some things, and I just wanted to clarify. Especially the whole point of this video is I wanted to clarify the whole T-share part because I was kind of glossing over the examples that were in that PDF that I went through. Anyway, let me just share my screen and I'll go through it. Oops, sorry. What am I doing? Cancel. Okay, so this is the PDF that I'm referring to that I was going through earlier. It's the last page. So I was just reading this example and I was kind of glossing over it because I was trying to rush through it because it just seems kind of boring going through like math. Um, but by me wanting to gloss over it, I just made it more complicated because it was probably, I don't know. I was kind of bored going through it, so I imagine a lot of people were bored listening to it. So I would imagine a lot of people probably zoned out during that part. And on top of that, like I was using the wrong words. I was saying that. So let me just go through it again. I'm gonna read it slowly. So in this example, pretty much what I was mistaken. I was saying that the principal and the yield when a stake ends. Okay, what am I saying? I'm trying to talk about the recalculation that the smart contract does of the recalculation of the share rate every time a hex stake ends. So every time a hex stake ends, the smart contract runs a calculation, and I'm going to go through the calculation, and it ratchets up the share rate. So in the video earlier, I was saying how the T share is the most important part of the Hex ecosystem, but in reality, it's the share rate. So the T share is a measure or a number of shares, and it is important as well. So I guess there's two important things, but I just didn't emphasize the share rate um, because T shares is what directly pays you. Like each T share pays you a certain amount of Hex each day, and we can go through the whole payout. I didn't touch on. There's just so much in Hex, and I was trying to keep the video sort of concise. But after going through it, I realized how much there is more to cover. How many things I missed out on. Like I didn't even talk about penalties. When you end a stake early, there's penalties involved. Like I could just do a whole video on that, a shorter video. So I kind of realized that maybe I should just make a bunch of shorter videos with each one element of Hex instead of just one long video where I'm kind of like rushing through certain areas. That way I could just focus on one thing. Like what I'm trying to do now is I kind of just want to revisit and correct this whole share rate ratcheting and how it works. So yes. Anyway, in this example, it's a 30-day stake length. The principal is 100,000 hex, and the given is that the share rate is 20,000 at the time of the stake. So the share rate always changes. Remember in this hex daily stats in the previous video, um, I showed how every day. So you can see the share rate here. It ratchets up. In the video earlier, see right here, the data for yesterday is already in. This is day 1004. I made the video before this data was in. So the share rate was 23,300. Well, actually, it was 23,306, but it was still live data. Um, so every day, so if I made the stake yesterday, the share rate would be 6 hex less. In other words, I would need 6 hex less to get a T share than I would now. So now I need 23,306. Yesterday I needed 23,300.1. The day before it was 1 hex less. The day before that it was 23,287. The day before that it was 23,281. The day before that it was set 275, 266, 255, 243, 243. So sometimes it doesn't change, sometimes it does. It just depends if there's a stake that ends that day, or it depends how many stakes end within a certain day. Depending on how many stakes end that day, let's say there's 10 stakes that end today, the share rate is gonna recalculate 10 times depending on how many T-shares. Let's go through the formula really quick, so we could just understand it, and so I could feel better about having corrected my mistake earlier. So the given here is that the share rate was 20,000 hex per T share at the time of this stake. Obviously this was a while ago, because now it's 23,306, but this is just an example. So every day, even at a different time of the day, the share rate will change. So it just depends when you start your stake. And this example is 20,000. The share rate is 20,000 hex per T share. Okay, so I didn't stress that earlier. And then the daily payout is 6 hex per T share. But anyway, so at the time of the stake start, so when this person started the stake, so I guess let's just go through this. So number of T shares. So in other words, this is a formula trying to figure out how many T shares you're going to get. So number of T shares equals how much hex you have, your principal number of hex, divided by the share rate, by the T share rate, which is the same thing. So in this example, the principal is 100,000 hex. So let's say you have a bag of 100K. So we're trying to figure out how many T shares you're going to get for your stake. And again, you're planning on staking it for 30 days. So the way you calculate how many T shares you're going to get is you do your principal, 100,000, divided by the share rate, as it says here, which is 20,000, that's a given, equals 5. So 100,000 divided by 20,000 equals 5. So that's how many T shares you get. And then yield at stake maturity of 30 days equals, so this is how you figure out your interest or the yield. 5 T shares times 6 hex per day. So remember the daily payout. So again, it changes. You know what? Let's just go over here. So payout per T share. That's what this column is. So today it's 6.22. Yesterday it was 6.269. 6.17, 6.17. You know, it's kind of like if it goes up and down, but like this day there was a big penalty. So the payout is interest, which is the inflation. Remember, in the previous video I talked about where does yield come from, and I mentioned that hex is inflationary. It inflates at 3.69% a year, and that inflation goes into this pool, and that pool gets distributed to the stakers. So whoever has a T-shirt, so you know, however many T-shirts you have, you get 6 per T-shirt. So if you have 5, you're gonna get 30 that day. So every day there's a disbursement, there's a payout. So this is the daily payout. It's 6.2. In the example here, where is it here? The payout is 6, so just easy math. So the way you figure out your yield is, you know, at the end of 30 days, it would be 5 T-shares times 6 hex per day. So remember, each T-share pays you 6, and then you divide that by Oh yeah. You multiply that. Sorry, I was looking at this slash. So it's 5 t-shirts times 6. That's 30 times 30 days. So you would get 30 t-shirts per day for 30 days. Would it be 900? So that's how you figure out your yield. So now let's read the recalculation section. So that's how much hex the system owes you, plus your principal. So it'd be 100,000 was your principal, and then you earned, for locking it up, for those 30 days, you had 5 t-shirts, so you got 900 hex for those 30 days. So when you end the stake, what the smart contract does is, so remember I did that little drawing of like, let me just do it again, the vending machine, the Ethereum vending machine, EVM, virtual machine. Actually, it's not vending machine, but I just call it, they call it the EVM virtual machine, but I just call it vending machine. It's easier to understand. So this was you with your bag of hex, all right? And so you put in 100K in this example, right, into the vending machine. So this is your principal, 100K. And then you decided to put it in for 30 days, right? So you input right here in the machine, just like when you go to a vending machine, you put like D6 or whatever. And then so the machine calculates based on the current share rate. So the machine knows what the share rate is always. Let's say in this case, it's 20K, 20,000 hex per T-share. So if you're putting in 100,000, it's going to spit out like a little ticket or whatever. I mean, it actually goes into the blockchain, and you don't really get a ticket, obviously, it's just all digital. But anyway, so you would get a 5 T-share ticket, right? And then you would hold that ticket for 30 days because that's what you said you were going to do. And then each T-share, remember, it pays you 6 hex per day. So at the end of these 30 days, you're going to earn 900 hex in yield or interest, whatever, plus you're going to get your principal back, P. So you're going to get a total of 100,900 hex at the end of the stake, right? So you, so let's go back to the beginning of the stake. At stake start, you come in and you put in the hex, and then you get this 5 ticket, 5 T-share ticket, right? And then you put that in your pocket and you walk away. And then you come back 30 days later, right? With a happy face because you're excited, you get to take your money out with the ticket in your hand, right? With the T-shares. You insert the ticket in a different slot. Let's just say it's a slot down here, since that's the slot that spit it out. You put it back in and it shreds it. So it burns those T-shares. So when you put in the coins, essentially it burns them. They're no longer in circulation. And then it spits out, it mints 5 T-shares, and then you walk away with the slip. And then at the end of your term, 30 days later, there's a 2-week grace period, by the way, 14-day grace period. At the end of 14 days, you start to get penalized. I think it's like 1% per day after the grace period until your stake bleeds out, so it goes to 0. So you need to honor your commitment, not just by honoring, not ending it early. You also gotta not end it too late. So there's a 14-day grace period. But let's just say you come back like 30 days or 33 days later within the grace period, right? So you put in your ticket in here. So you come in to end your stake. So this is the end stake point. So you come in to end your stake. You put in the 5 T-share slip, the Ethereum vending machine, it shreds those, and then it spits out your coins, tin 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 tin, like one of those Vegas old school vending machines. 100,900, and then you just leave with your coins all happy. Or if you wanted to, you could just take your 900 and then resubmit your 100K. I mean, you could do whatever the hell you want, right? But some people just skim the interest and then they just restake it. It's called a rolling stake, where you just every 30 days you would get 900 hex, in interest, and you would just keep rolling over your principal. But anyway, we're talking about the recalculation of the share rate, right? So remember when you came in 30 days ago, it was 20,000. Well, 30 days later, it might be a lot more. Remember this other website? Where is it? No, there was it was down here. It was fire. It was just easier to see, like the future projected share rate. So where was it? X staking strategies, chart state. Oh, right here. I think it's right here. So this one. So here, this is August. So, and then September. So in the end of August, it was 23,306. This is the current, so it's still the same. This was at the month close. So I guess this would be projected, would be 24,000. So 30 days, let's say 30 days later, it's going to change by what is that, 700, 800-ish, some change, like 795 or something like that. So there's going to be a 795 hex difference in the share rate. So in other words, the price or the share rate is going to increase. You're going to have to pay 795 more hex 30 days later to get the same amount of T-shares. No, I'm sorry, 795 per T-share. So if you want those same 5 T-shares, you're going to have to pay 795 times 5. It's going to be like 3,500 or something like that, or 36, 3,700. So if you wanted to roll your stake over, you would no longer get those 5 T-shares, because the share rate wouldn't be 20K anymore. It'd be 20,795, let's say. So if you were to skim the interest, even if you weren't to skim the interest, if you were to just stake the whole thing all over again, you would still get less than 5 T-shares like you had before. So let's just continue back to this document. Where is it? I lost it. Here. So back to the recalculation. Recalculation and check of the share rate at stake maturity. So that's when your stake ends. In order to satisfy this rule that when your stake ends, you cannot stake with equal parameters, meaning same principal and same duration, and receive the same amount of T-shares. So this is a rule that the founders or the designers decided to establish and code into the smart contract. They didn't want someone who would make short stakes over and over to earn as much or more than someone who just made one single longer stake. So if you just do one single long stake, you're always going to earn more. And the way they're going to enforce that through the code is through this rule. So at stake maturity, in order to satisfy this rule of not receiving the same amount of T-shares with the same parameters, the contract will perform a calculation where the amount of shares is now fixed and uses the new, I don't know what they mean by this, but anyway, let me just keep going, and uses the new amount of hex, which is a principal plus yield. In this case, it was 100,900, to solve for the new T-share rate. So remember, the problem is it needs to recalculate what the new share rate. This is expressed as follows. So the number of T-shares equals the this is the, okay, let me just keep going. The number of T shares equals number of hex, which is principal and yield, divided by share rate. Rearrange and solve for T share rate. T share rate equals number of hex, principal plus yield, divided by number of T shares. Okay, so it was 5. So that's why in the next bullet point, the T share rate equals 100,900, which is, you know, principal plus interest, divided by what you had originally, 5 T shares. So before it was 100 divided by 5 was 20, right? If you sort of reverse this math over here, you would get the old share rate, but the new share rate is the principal plus the interest divided by the amount of T shares. So they kind of like reverse the equation. Instead of dividing the principal by the share rate to get the T shares, they're dividing the principal and the yield divided by the T shares to get the share rate, if that makes sense. So let me just say that again, because that's even confusing for me. Over here, in order to when you start your stake, the smart contract is trying to figure out how many T shares you're going to get for your principal plus your duration. Depending, well, take into consideration what the current share rate is at that time when you start your stake. So it's going to take your principal divided by the share rate, and it'll give you the amount of T shares. When you end it, it's going to take your principal and yield, or your principal and your interest, add it together, and it's going to divide it by the amount of T shares, and it's going to spit out the new share rate for the next person that comes to stake. So that's the part that I kind of got wrong earlier. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you already got that, but let me just try to explain it one more time using the good old trusty green board and drawing my Ethereum vending machine or virtual machine. My good old trusty. This is the glass, you know, when you go to a vending machine and you see all the the chips or the sodas or whatever, the candy. This is the display, and this is that little square where you know, you get all the buttons. But this is a futuristic one, so it's probably like touch screen, where you put in the duration and then you just, you know, put in the amount of coins. Whatever. So when you come in to start a stake start. So what happens, what the Ethereum machine looks at is your principal. So let's just use the same numbers. Let's say when you at stake start, the share rate is 20K, right? Per hex. 20K hex per T share. Right? That's the share rate. When you walk up to the machine, it's already set, because the last person that ended their stake, it recalculated, and it's 20,000 when you walk up, right? So you come over here with your principal of 100K, right? Because the share rate is 20,000, you divide it by 20K, and it spits out 5 T shares, right? So that's the calculation. That's how you get your T shares. It's your principal divided by the share rate. Okay. So what I was trying to explain earlier that I messed up was at stake end, the formula is different. So again, in this example, it was 30 days. So you come back 30 days later to redeem, you know, your coins. So you turn in your 5 T shares. And the Ethereum vending machine, it runs a different formula. So when you start your stake, it's principal divided by share rate. When you end your stake, it's principal 100K plus 900 principal plus yield or interest, whatever. Let's just call it yield. It's a better word. Interest, some, has a negative connotation. Plus, it's not really interest because it's really just inflation that you're getting. Remember. So anyway, so it's this number, which is principal plus yield, divided by the amount of T shares, which you had 5, and it's gonna spit out a different number, which I don't know what that number is. So let me see. I can just get a quick calculator. So 100,900 divided by 5 equals, so this would be the new share rate that it would recalculate. So and this is assuming that you're the only person that had a stake for 30 days. Because remember, the EVM does a recalculation every time a stake ends. So, when you started your stake and left for those 30 days or 33 days or whatever, there could have been like 100 people that had stakes ending. So that would be 100 recalculations. So every day there could be like 0 recalculations if there's a day with no stakes ending, or there could be 100 recalculations. But in this, just for the sake of understanding how it works, let's say that you were the only person to end a stake in these 30 days. So 20,180 would be the new share rate after you ended your stake and the EVM did the recalculation. So this number would now be 20,180 for the next person that comes in to start a stake. The T shares, let's say they came in with 100K for 30 days as well. Let's say you just try to restake it. Let's say you're the same person. So let me get the calculator again. So it would perform this simple formula again. So it'd be 100,000. Let's just say you try to restake your new bag, which is principal plus yield, 100,000 and the 900 that you earned, divided by, it's not 20K anymore because it recalculated because you ended your stake. Those 5 T shares are burned. And now if you want to get 5 T shares, this is what I was trying to explain earlier. You're either going to have to put in more hex out of your pocket, or you're going to have to stake it longer than 30 days to try to get the same 5 T shares. But let's see how many T shares you'll get. So now let's just say this is all the hex you had. 100,000 plus the 900 that you're in for yield, and then you divide that by 20,180 equals 5. It's still the same. That's super weird. 100,900 divided by 20,180. That is interesting. Well, that sort of throws off my whole understanding of it, because I thought you were going to get less. I was actually looking forward to being like 4.4 or whatever. I think the reason it didn't work is because in real life there would be a bunch of stakes ending between the time that you started your stake and left for 30 days and came back. There would have been like tens or hundreds or maybe even thousands of stakes that would have ended. So I tried to simplify that by eliminating it. And so that's why if you're the only person constantly staking and restaking, then it would just defeat the purpose. So anyway, so that example didn't work. And this just goes to show that I'm kind of doing this on the fly. But anyway, now we sort of understand in a clearer way, I hope, how the recalculation of the share rate works. And it should only ratchet up if you're not the only staker. So if someone came in, like let's say you ended your stake and someone was waiting behind you in line and they're kind of annoyed because you're taking your time. So you got out of the way so you could just kind of like, whatever, put your money in your pocket and let the dude like start or end his stake. So by the time you got back to the machine, then the share rate would have ratcheted up anyway. So you would have got less T-shares. So anyway, that was weird. But I think I explained and corrected what I messed up earlier. So I didn't fully understand this, which is at the stake end, it divides your principal plus your yield and divides it adds your principal and your yield, and it divides it by the amount of T-shares that you initially had. At your stake start, it's your principal divided by the share rate to come up with the amount of T-shares that you're going to get. And because it's 30 days, you're not really going to get that much of a bonus. Remember, if you stake longer for every year, you're going to get a bonus. So back to this calculator. Let's say it was 100K and you do it for 30 days. So see right here, you're gonna get 4.359. That's what I was expecting when I did the calculator, because the share rate has actually ratcheted up. You know, it's not 20,000 anymore like in that example. It's 23,306. But let's say instead of 30 days, you try to do 90 days. Let's see how much it changes. So it's 4.359. So now it's 4.5. 180 would be 4.7, and then 365. Let's say you do a full year, you're gonna have 5.1. Anyway, so just to show you, like, you know, the same principle, but if you change the duration, you get more T-shares. Yeah, I think that's it for now. That's all I wanted to cover. So, sorry, that was a little weird because, anyway, I was kind of just doing it on the fly. So, thanks for watching. I'll try to keep it shorter from here on out. So, yeah. Hi again. So just really quick, I figured out why that little example at the end didn't work, where I was trying to see how many T-shares you'd get with the new share rate after you know, you came back. If you were the only staker, you know, you staked your 100,000 in this example. Remember, you had 100,000 hex that you staked. At the time, the share rate was 20K, so you got 5 T-shares. You left for 30 days. After 30 days, you ended your stake. Remember, after every end stake, the EVM recalculates the share rate, so it's going to go up. Every time a stake ends, when you burn those T-shares, it recalculates it and it always goes up. The share rate only goes one way, and that's up. So their own T-shares are getting more expensive over time. So anyway, in that example, I you know, I added the principal and the yield, which is 100,900, and you divide that by, so sorry, at the stake start, the EVM is trying to solve for how many T-shares you'll get, depending on the share rate and depending on your deposit, your principal. At the stake end, the EVM is trying to solve for the new share rate. So at stake start, it's solving for the amount of T-shares you'll get, depending on your parameters. At stake end, it's solving for the new share rate. So it adds your, you know, it calculates your payout, which would be principal plus yield, divided by the amount of shares you got. And in this example, again, the new recalculated share rate was 20,180. And so the example that I was trying to do that didn't work, if you remember, let me just do it again. I thought it was going to be less, but it's not. So it was, so your principal is now 100,000 plus your yield 900. And then you divide that by, remember, let's say you're going to restake. So you would divide it by the new share rate, which is 20,180 equals, and it's still 5. And it threw me off because T-shares are only supposed to get more expensive. And if you got 5, oh, I guess they are more expensive technically because you're putting in 900 extra hex that you earned. But still, I didn't think you were going to get 5 T-shares. So I went back and I read under this document, under the calculation, there's still a couple more little bullet points that I overlooked. And here they are. It says this is your new so after this calculation, this is your new T-share rate, what we just came up with, which is 20,180. It is then compared to the existing global T-share rate. So that's what I was saying, like between those 30 days when you left, and there were a bunch of other stakes that ended. So all those recalculations between, when you made your stake and when you're coming back. So all those recalculations of the stakes would establish a new global share rate, right? Whatever the share rate is as far as the EVM is concerned. So that's what this is referring to, the global share rate. So when you come back and you end your stake, it's going to run that formula. And in that case, it was 20,180, right? So then it compares that number, the new share rate based on your interest and the amount of shares you had. It compares it to the global, to the existing system. So let me just read it. It is then compared to the existing system global T-share rate. If the rate is greater, it will set a new global. So if the rate that you get running your calculation is greater than the global, then you set the new share rate for yourself and for everyone else. If your share rate is not greater than the system share rate, i.e. the global share rate is higher than your rate, then you will need to use the global rate. So sorry. So if when the EVM runs a calculation based on your yield and the amount of T-shares that you had, and you get a new share rate, it already has a global share rate. So it takes the greater one. So if your share rate is bigger than the global one, it just replaces that, and that's the new share rate for yourself and for everyone else. But if the global one is higher, then it'll just go with that. And so anyway, that's the piece I was missing. So I'm still learning as I'm making these videos, actually. So if this rate is greater, it will set the new global rate for yourself and for everyone else. If not, then you will need to use the global rate when creating a new stake. This recalculation and check is performed at the conclusion of every future stake. This is how the T-share rate continuously ratchets up. Anyway, that's it. Okay.